Let's talk about the win at the coffee shop the other day.
The win at the coffee shop. This is like I feel like Dean and Dean and Jay. The guy never called me, so it wasn't that big of a win. But
You should have
uh,
given it, you should have done the other ways. Like, give me your number.
I
I never
know.
like to give them like, just give me your number and tell me
Well,
your
it
name.
felt like a dad trying to set me up with a chick for a date. Dave's like, we were talking to this guy. We were talking to this guy, and he was just like a pilot. And he's like, yeah, I'm looking at, like after 15 minutes of chatting, he's like, oh, yeah, I'm over here looking at a condo. And Dave's like, you need a mortgage? You want a mortgage? And he's like, what? And I was like, he's asking if you need a mortgage. I'm a loan originator. And he's like, oh, I haven't talked to anybody. So I gave him my card. But I mean, sounds like it's right up in Dean and Jay's alley.
Yeah.
Looking at a house but haven't talked to anybody yet.
So if Dave was there, Dave should have been like, no, 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 Ryan, you get his info, not 3 days
That's what I felt like. I felt
Well,
like, you're like,
Ryan
yeah,
and
this is
him,
my son.
Ryan and
My
him
son.
kind of
You
took
need,
it.
you need a, you need a
Ryan
boyfriend.
and him kind of took it over. I said, because I just they were talking and as I was listening to him, he lives in Castle Pines. He's a pilot in Centennial Airport as a private guy, and I'm like, why is he at freaking Monk and Mongoose at DTC? And so I go, what are you doing here? Like, why are you at this coffee shop? There's probably a million coffee shops between here and where he needs to go. And he says, oh, I'm looking at a condo in one of these buildings over here. And it's like, oh, and I'm like, are you serious? Like fucking looking at a condo in the building right now? It's like, you got a mortgage? And he's like, what? And I go, a mortgage. Do you have a mortgage? Because this guy does mortgages. he said, actually, no, I do need a mortgage. And so the only thing I would have done, that I've told you guys, you already started it. The guy's like, he goes, here, give me your phone number. And I would have said, no, give me your phone number. I'll call you. And so like, just let me get your contact information and I'll send you a text or something like that. But it was just fun to ask, just get yourself in that situation where you ask that on a regular basis. So we've heard like several good ones this week. So great job, everybody. And then the last thing is the power home buying thing that you were talking about, power home selling. I put some information into Chat GPT about what I was looking for. Just the idea here is, and we have to brainstorm this as a group, or I'd like to brainstorm this as a group. We don't have to spend too much time, but the opportunity, I've said this before, is like, this is the market that all the home buyers have been waiting for. It's a seller's market, or it's a buyer's market. It's not a seller's market anymore. And so you think about all the bullshit, and you guys that lived it can share it really well. All the bullshit that buyers had to put up with from sellers trying to buy a house in 2020 and 2021 and first half of 2022, which was, waive any appraisal gaps, accept the appraisal gap, waive appraisal contingencies, waive loan contingency, waive inspection contingency, and don't even bother asking for a concession and plan on paying more than the asking price. That's what was going on. And it's been that way for a long time. The tables have turned. Interest rates are still high, and that was a result of ultra low interest rates, right? And so interest rates, everybody wants the interest rates to be lower, but we know what that can lead to. So the way that I'm just trying to figure out what the way is that you can get that message across to sellers, especially the listing agents who are educating the sellers, and then the buyers agents that are educating the buyers as to what to prepare for on how to use these strategies to engineer the house payment they want, right? Because this goes back, it was funny, Ryan and I were talking about this. Tom Ward, when we were at Majestic, he had a couple of builder accounts at Majestic Mortgage, and they were the ones that came up. He branded it Power Home Buying. And it was just 2-1 buy downs and 3-2-1 buy downs where the builder subsidized the payment. One of the things that I forgot to mention, Ryan, was that Tom Ward, I think the calculation, if I'm not mistaken, is that 1% increase in house payment every year, in interest rate every year, the first 3 years or the first 2 years of the loan, depending on the program, represented a 3% raise in the borrower's income. So if the borrower I think that's what we used to use, is like if they got a 3% cost of living raise every year, they could still comfortably afford the payment as the payment increased.
Well, I mean, that's on.
I'm not sure if that still applies, but
I mean, you're talking what income? Depends on the borrower's income.
Well, also it depends on, the house price at the time too, like the size of the mortgage.
We're talking like median income, sure. Like, yeah, if you're working on a fixed income.
Yeah.
No,
But
I'm
the
talking
idea
about
was
like
selling,
general
Yeah.
average cost of
Yeah.
living increase.
this was
Yeah.
selling the
How I
monthly-
sell it too with people. They're like, oh, I'm worried about my payment going up. Like, well, theoretically you should get a raise next year. I don't know what it's going to be, but that should, as
Do
that
you
goes
get
up,
raises
so does
at your job,
raise.
right?
So
I haven't gotten a raise in 4 years, Chris. They're not going to give me a raise.
well, go talk to more people at coffee shop then.
No, I'm saying
Anyway,
a
that's kind
client
of how I
sends-
do it too. But Jacqueline, I talked to Jacqueline about it. She doesn't. Her strategy is a little different. So I don't know. There's a lot of different ways to help clients these days, but
Yeah,
I like it.
I did a permitted on Tuesday. We got, I don't know, almost 3% in seller concessions and got their rate down to 6.125. Client was stoked.
Yeah.
So there you go. And I would use those stories and when you're talking to these clients, I just use those stories, especially up front, to just say, look, there's a way we can engineer this house payment to get you what you're really looking for and permanently. And then when the opportunity comes along for the refinance, we think everybody's projected that rates will be in the low sixes by the end of the year, but no, they've been saying that for 3 years now, that rates are going to be under 6, and they're still not. So let's get you there now. And then when the opportunity if the opportunity presents itself to lower the rate in the future, we'll be there and we'll be able to do it with no lender fee, no appraisal fee. So I think that you could get maybe buyers a little more anxious. I think then that's the goal here, is how do I get the buyers hungrier to make the offer and get the house and aggressively go out and shop with their buyer's agents. And I think your buyer's agents would really appreciate that sort of effort. So like I said, I was screwing around a little bit. When I get to the office, Ryan, I'll copy and paste it and I'll email it to you. And I'll email it to all you guys is some of the stuff that I got out of ChatGPT just talking about it, and just some different marketing ideas and ways to position it, things that you could do on social media, that kind of thing.
I have a question in regards to Casey's about a bunch of people being listing heavy. I was talking to a realtor yesterday, and I've had few conversations. I'm like, well, where are your sellers going? And they're like, oh, out of state. I don't know if that's what you guys are getting. And I don't know if that's just a canned answer, but it's like, it seems like kind of, I'm like, man, it's Denver. Like we're going down the wrong path and we have like net migration out, which is kind of weird, but as everyone's nodding, is that kind of what you're getting to answer wise? Weird.
For the most part, yep.
Where are they going?
Yeah.
Are you asking?
Kansas City, Arizona. Are we licensed in Missouri yet? Missouri?
Kansas, yes. Missouri, no.
Missouri? No, working on Indiana and Ohio right now, and California. Those will be the next 3 that get added.
Hopefully Missouri.
It's just like crazy to me. I'm like, man, I mean, I know it's expensive, but climate wise and weather and.
Well, it's funny because I'm having a lot of people incoming. Like my buyers are incoming and my sellers are leaving.
Yeah, it's weird.
Like I've
had people move from Texas a few this year, but some people want to move to Texas.
Yeah, I got a buyer from Texas. Got a buyer from Washington.
I've sent you 2 Texas people this year.
Yeah, one went new build. No, you sent me in Arizona to Texas, I think. Neither of them.
Oh, Christy was Arizona.
Yeah, and she's not moving to Arizona anymore.
Why aren't you guys all getting licensed in these states that we're licensed in?
I'm going to by the end of the year.
I'm
going to do it in October.
I'm good. Chris, don't give her.
I'm sick of dude. You haven't even taken me out golfing in like years.
Yeah, I haven't closed one of your clients. They're crazy.
Maybe they just don't like you.
Birds of the same feather flock together, I guess.
Yeah, you just gotta harness your inner hobber for those people.
Yes, dude. F&A. But I mean, so on this like power home selling conversation, I've had probably 6 or 7 meetings with agents this week, and people have like loved the idea of like what I'm talking about, which is coming out of the gate with concessions. And I told him, I was like, if you want to add another %, I'll be like, I could be the preferred lender, kind of like what we're doing with the 1.0 buy down situation. But I told him, I was like, this isn't necessarily something you have to use me for. I just want to provide you all the info to like be able to market it. And at the end of the day, we're having conversations with listing agents, but one of my agents has like 7 listings coming up and she's going to try them on like 4. So I'll talk to you guys about this when we come back to it. But my thought is like, leave the low hanging fruit of like, hey, this house has a special incentive that you can potentially get a rate in the 5s. Leave it at that. Contact me for more info. And then it's like, put something in the house about the permanent buy down, put something in the MLS and the supplemental info. Like that in itself will just get people calling you. You're going to get more sign calls, what they call sign calls, but you know, getting your information off of Redfin, right?
I wonder if they could put it on like the sign in the yard too. I wonder.
Yeah, they might be able to. One of the things that one of my agents, she said they already kind of been doing this, but have been gearing it towards more like 2-1 buy downs. And she's agreed with me that they need to pivot towards permanent, was putting it in the first picture, like
Oh.
right, because she's like, don't make people read, just let them look at it in the picture. And so she's gonna start trying that too, because they say this is how they teach all their agents at the brokerage she works at to try and sell.
The, one of the agents I work with, one of the agents in his office, she puts in there, if the client has at least 10% down, you can get a rate under like I think the one that he sent over to me was like 5.75, because you need about 3 point, when he sent that to me, you needed about 3.25 and buy down and credits to buy down the rate to get to like 5.75. So the one other listing that I have with him, I just told him what the number was. It was like, if they put down less than 10%, it's this, and they can get to this rate. If they put down more than this, and they go, obviously you still have to qualify, and we still have to make sure all of those
Oh,
pieces
that's a
line
good
up.
idea.
But that's what I've been telling them, because you're gonna cap out at 3.
Yeah.
And then just telling them, it's like 3 points will get you this, and then you can walk through the conversation with the client around whether or not that actually makes sense. Cause like the lock call I did yesterday, we got 12.5 in concessions. I showed them buying down the rate with the concessions, and then I showed them just bringing their earnest money to closing. They took the higher rate.
Yeah, I think just get the concessions and then figure it out from there.
Yeah.
But
So they don't have to use it that way, but if it gets them into the conversation, then that's all that matters.
like
Ryan,
Ryan, are your realtors giving you pushback? Like,
No, they're
you
loving
can tell them, but it's like it's really up to them to then.
right. Well, I
explain
think
to
some
their
of them are like,
seller,
yeah,
and
I
the
love
seller
it.
try to,
You
like,
know, like I've got a few people are like, I'm throwing this on my listings for sure right now. Some people you can get the vibe of like, yeah, I think this is a really good idea. I'll be curious to see if they throw it on their listings, but every single one I've talked to is like, yeah, no, this is legit. I'm definitely gonna, like, they like the idea at least. No one's had pushback. I think the only thing that I've heard is like obviously convincing sellers to do this.
That's what my
Because
point
some
is. Are they having a
yeah,
hard time?
they're like, yeah, some sellers just aren't going to agree to it. And like, I get that. Some sellers aren't in a rush. They don't have to sell, right? And you know, they want to test the market and they don't trust their realtor that the fucking price they want to list at is not the right price. So
we also have two different types of agents, right? Some of the agents will have the hard conversation with their buyer because they're a good agent and they know what's going on. Like, hey, this is where we need to be at. This is what we need to be able to offer. And then there's the other agents who will just do whatever their client says.
most will suggest and then not be convicted enough and list at too high of a price. That's
I
just
wonder if we can help them build something like a mortgage coach where it's like, hey, you list at this at 750, 700 with $21,000 seller concession. Like, you got to figure out what the seller's like bottom line is, right? They want 700. Okay,
and that's
start your listing at 720 with a $20,000 seller credit, or start it at 700 with 0.
right. Well, and that's the thing is like, what am I just like, you just build it into the price at the end of the day. But at least you're just creating more buzz, you know, you're just putting more eyeballs on your place. Like that's all you're doing. If you do it out of the gate, it's just not as successful if you do it not on the first weekend, you know? And then she made a good point. She's like, and then when you don't do it on the first weekend, you have to also do something to the price because it's not going to re-trigger it, right? Otherwise, it's just going to be added verbiage to a stale listing.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
Ryan, is this presentation something that you're actually presenting? Like you have something built out for this, or this is just a conversation that you're having?
It's been a little bit of both, but yes, I do have a Canva like 6 or 7 slide presentation I put together.
Can you share that?
I've sent you so many leads. Can you build one for
Please.
me? My image and all that on it.
No, dude, the reason with Canva, I do the most basic slides
Kidding.
now. It's actually great. But yes, I can share that with you guys.
Nice
I
work.
think it'd be an easy thing, especially with the market right now, for anyone to just reach out to your agents and say, hey, like, look, we're going to do a 30, 45-minute seminar on power selling. How can we maximize your listings right now?
Well, and I
that-
think that's the approach that Ryan, the biggest takeaway that I got from what you're doing, Ryan, is that you're you're just having more and more conversations with everybody, right? I'm having more conversations with agents that you wouldn't be having, that you wouldn't be in conversation with, and you're just developing that relationship a little bit deeper. What was your question, Dean?
I was going to say, I used the Scott Nicholson's program and put together, because I had this exact same situation where I met someone who had listed their house. They're working with a realtor. They were thinking about dropping the price $25K. And so I put together a mortgage coach presentation, a whole video, everything to them. I saw this morning, they still dropped it 25K. So I anticipate that the realtor talked them out of it and said, let's just drop the price. It's easier. And when we don't have to have the discussion or whatever. The realtor hasn't called me back. I've been trying to get a hold of her, but I just dropped in the chat Scott Nicholson's 25K decision price drop or rate drop, where he walks through this process for realtors. And that's kind of what I modeled mine off of. So if anybody wants to take a look at that, I think he does the exact same thing, is saying, okay, well, you can drop the price and here's how this affects it. Or you can take that same amount of money and here's how it plays out this way. And I think that's what Chris was saying, because we have something that we could send out. This is pretty general.
And I think nowadays it's not necessarily the clarity around that. I think most agents get that, at least the agents that we work with understand the power of concessions, but it's now taking it to another level of like, how do we market it the best way possible? Right? Everybody knows concessions good. And if we put that, oh, we're giving 25K concessions, but it's like, take it and let's really try to, lean into the whole, 5% rate thing.
I mean, I think we're better than most LOs, and we're already like coaching our clients. Like, at least I am like showing these options in the sit. So then if they see listings like that, they're like, oh, this is a great idea. But yeah, I think it's convincing sellers and agents. They got to sell like a builder. I mean, let's be honest. This is the most inventory since it feels like 2012 to me.
That's what an agent talking about.
But like, I remember going to open houses. That's how I met realtors. I was going to open houses. Like, no one was there. It was like maybe 2 people would come in and I would just chat them up for 30 minutes and then set a meeting, but it feels very, very similar. I don't know if you agree, Jack.
Were we talking about power home buying when you first started?
No, we were doing Path to Buy. Oh my God.
The other one, Giuseppe did this last week. I don't know how it turned out. Yesterday was his 21st wedding anniversary. That's why he's not on the call. They went and spent the night downtown. But he did a move up tax analysis for a customer where he took their payment, the net tax savings between the current house and the new, bigger mortgage, higher interest rate house payment, and showed them what the net of their tax deduction was going to be. And the payments, he goes, I'm going to show a customer a move up tax. I go, how'd you build it? He goes, I just built a spreadsheet really quick and I did it in Excel. I was like, right on, let me know how it goes. And then he just hasn't told me. So, I went into ChatGPT and I said, like, I want to do a move up tax analysis. And it gave me like a little formula, but it's like, do you want us to build the spreadsheet? And I said, yeah. And then the formulas don't work, but it would be easy enough to build. So something to think about as well. But is the concept here, and this is what I would hit home with my listing agents and my buyer's agents, like people buy based on monthly payment period. That's why car ads all say $499, $999. That's why they don't say finance this much at this interest rate. They don't say any of that shit. It's in the fine print, but they're all basing it on monthly payment. Now we have to be careful because there's rules around how you can't put shit like that on social media, but the customer buys based on the monthly payment. That's what they care about. How much money do I need and what's my monthly payment, period. And so if you can get them into that mindset and like, let me show you how to engineer a house payment that you can live with, you'll have a better conversation. And like the agents, the message to the agents was, let me talk to the buyer for you. And then let me talk to this. And you got to be able to convince the seller. The agent's got to be able to convince the sellers, like, you don't want to do a price drop, do a concession. You're not getting your price anyway. So what difference does it make? Right? When it's time to do that price drop. To your point, Ryan, if the listing agent doesn't change the price on the home, it's a stale listing. If they change the price on the home, if the price goes from $950 to $939, it's a new it's a new price.
Or even $949, $999.
They could do a combination too. They could drop it 5 and then put 20 towards.
No, they can. That's the thing, is they can do the $9,499 to your point, Ryan, and then with 20, we have 3% seller concessions for those putting down 10%.
Yeah.
I like that idea of having the 10% down payment. If the customer's putting down 10%, we'll give you we have a 3% seller concession available. And if you're putting down 5%, we have whatever that is.
It's 3% for
It's still
5%.
Yeah.
You can go up to 6 for 10% or more.
I'd say if they could do 10, you'd mark it a 3-2-1. If they do less than 10, you can just mark it a 3% buy down.
FHA is still 6% seller concession, isn't it?
Yeah. Is there rules around realtors marketing that?
6%.
Dude, yeah. So get this. So the first agent I talked to this week, there was a lender that his seller knew, Christine Sterling, if you've ever like competed with her. She was at Fairway, but now she's at CMG. Chris. And she had like a sign writer that was like goes on the listing that was like her face, and it said like, you know, this property qualifies for a 5.875 rates as of this day. There was like a QR code to see your rates. They had like there was like a website. There's a whole thing built out for this specific property. And the agent was like, yeah, it was fine, but we just didn't do it on the first weekend, so it kind of sucked. But you can, I mean, she marketed literally a specific rate.
Yeah, just with the QR code and stuff, and just updated it. Yeah.
I mean, to your point there, Ryan, that was the key, right? So it's the timing of getting this information to the listing agents, right? If this information is coming in, but the home's been on the market for 3 weeks, that's very different than when they're about to go live, right? How they can possibly present that and how the seller will be comfortable with these things.
And where it'll be a good sale is like if I get a success story from one of my realtors, I'll tell, you know, we can story sell this right here. Here's what we did. Here's how we did it. And this is, you know, caused more action or whatever, right? You know, it's hard to sell when it's just an idea.
It's gotta be in their listing presentation, honestly.
That's what most people are saying. They're like, we're already talking about concessions and listing presentations, so this is just a unique strategy to utilize that rather than being like, you're gonna have to give up some concessions. It's like, here's how we're gonna do it and make the most of it, you know.
And MBS Highway has some good stuff too, where you can plug in that stuff, price drop, and then verse permanent buy down verse 2-1. And I think usually the break even between the permanent and 2-1 is like 3.5, 4 years.
Jack, is this the one you mentioned earlier?
Like obviously the worst option. What'd you say, Case?
Yeah, this image, this is the one, it's from somebody over at Mile High Modern, but that's because we've got one of our mutual buyers is selling their house and moving out of state for a little while. And so he's like, can we do this on their house? So I gave him the numbers, but this is what they're pushing out. Cause when I ran the numbers to get, and I go, I can't, like 575 is really expensive. Can I just give you 599? Because nobody wants to see a 7 and nobody wants to see a 6. So I think if you can throw a 599 is fine.
Yeah, it's true. Well, and I think it's seller assisted.
Yeah.
Right. So like it could still be.
We're not covering it. Yeah. And even with the 1.0 buy downs, I'm bumping up the rate. I'm not paying that.
No,
So-
for sure.
Oh yeah, we're paying for it.
You're doing at least like 50-50, right?
Yeah. And I can usually, when I get those, I can usually talk them out of it. So. So it's like, I don't wanna, cause like my personal concern with these buy downs is like, I've got people who bought in 23 that I can't get them out of those rates. And we sold them a lower rate, really. And so what I've been doing with clients now is just talking them through. And it's like, hey, instead of like, all you're doing is giving the bank money interest free. Like if it's, especially if they want a buyer paid buy down, which I know we can't do, but even with the seller paid, if we don't have quite enough, or it's not quite as lucrative, I'm just telling them, I was like, let's just, like the clients yesterday, it's like, let's just take that extra $7,000 you were going to bring to the closing table because we're using up all the seller's money for the buy down. Let's throw it into high yield savings account. Let that earn interest, supplement your payment yourself if you need to. And then in a year or 2 years, like, let's see what we can do there, or take that same $7,000. Like with them, it's like, if you're going to pay that extra $500 or whatever it was, like we can knock out one of their student loans or a credit card. So just looking at going back to like what I think Mike said a couple of weeks ago, it's like looking at their whole financial economy. It's like, let's look at their whole financial picture and educate them better there, because even the higher interest rate in reality there's more tax benefits to that. And so like, there's a tax advantage there to paying, like, that's the silver lining of a higher interest rate environment, in my opinion. And it's like, we can always, like, if the scenarios that I ran yesterday for same realtor was like, if this client really wants their payment to be she wants it at $3,000. And I'm like, okay, well then that house either needs to drop to 400 instead of 625, or rates need to be 3.375. Neither of those two things are going to occur. So why don't we do this instead? And so just showing them, here's what this needs to look like. And they're like, well, we'll just wait until next year. And it's like, cool. So now that house is going to be $60,000 more than it was. Your rate's 1% lower. Now you're competing. Now you're waiving in contingencies. And your payment is within $100 of what it would have been today. And now you're financing an extra 50 grand. So just having more financial.
Just throwing this out there. Do you guys have any agent that's mastered this process that with his listings? Like if you do, it might be fun to think about Zenith doing a webinar with a realtor that you can invite real estate agents to learn how to market your listing properly.
No one's mastered marketing a listing right now.
There's
I
got to
think
be someone. There's got to be someone from Go, right?
Someone from Go, like,
Oh yeah.
Like you can bring in an agent from a different state. It doesn't necessarily have to be someone that we've necessarily
Oh,
used.
that's true. That's true.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I haven't had one conversation with an agent where they're having like overall success. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all price, you know. That's really what it's all tied to. But
Well, look, buyers moving out of Colorado isn't the worst thing in the world that could happen in Colorado because let's face it, prices are really high. Prices have accelerated pretty quickly. And they really haven't dropped that much. We're starting to see it, but they really haven't moved down any significantly. And we had so many years of we had those double-digit increase years were significant. I mean, just look at your property tax bill. That's all you have to do. Look at your property tax bill from, 2020 to now and go like, holy shit. And so so everything is up. And at the end of the day, softening of prices isn't the worst thing in the world that could be happening. It just sucks if you're a seller and most sellers are like addicted to whatever the highest price Zillow said it was, right? So
The good thing about home prices falling is it'll help inflation come down. So, which might help rates, I suppose.
but Tom Ward's presentation was I sold one house a day when he was a Century 21 guy. We sold one house a day every day for 6 months when he owned his Century 21 franchises. And the way they did it was in a 21% interest rate market. I can't remember. And it was probably 50% bullshit from Tom, but the focus was the monthly payment. We focused on monthly payment. We sold monthly payment. And I think that you could probably make a name for yourself in the agent community that you market to by focusing on that, being the guy that's talking about, let's focus on the monthly payment because that's what people buy. Because it is. But I agree with you. The 3-2-1 or the 2-1 buy down, date the rate shit is like run its course because the rates haven't come down. So the best thing you could do is lock them down into a rate they can comfortably afford now and know that that's the rate. So anyway, it's almost 10 o'clock. Thanks everybody. It was a great call. Good sharing. Thanks Ryan for sharing your deal and the great ideas. And just wanted to say thank you for all of you that reached out to me to wish me happy birthday yesterday. I guess you forgot, Dean. So just wanted to thanks to everybody. I know where I stand, Dean. It's okay. I know where I stand.
I was going to do it on Facebook, but
Yeah. Yeah. That's how I know my real friends are. Thanks everybody. See you later. I've been waiting the whole call for that.